Part 4. Blood's voice wheezed with fury as he spat his words into the sand. He flicked his chain staff through the air, the rods and links buzzing like a swarm of flies as the wind fled before it. I am the tabernacle of the divine rot, the Khan croaked. Behold the power of the crow god. With a flick of his hand, the Khan slapped a flabby finger against the leprous flesh of a slave. Instantly, the man collapsed in a groaning, twitching mass. Skin sloughed from his bones, and flesh darkened beneath the sheen of filth. A great horn of twisted bone erupted from the slave's forehead, even as his eyes slithered across his face to merge into a single putrid orb. At the center of his head, hands lengthened into talons, and organs swollen with rot burst through his skin. Great fangs dripped from a suddenly gaping maw. A sword-like growth oozed from the slave's side until at last its weight tore it loose from his body. The stricken slave moaned, retching as it stooped down to retrieve the blade his body had grown. When it stood again, its claws were wrapped tightly around a length of twisted corrosion, a crust of decay flaking down its blade. Bleda laughed as his slave was consumed by the divine rot of Neglin. His mortal being devoured by the demonic essence of his Khan had infected him with. The plague bearer moaned again, then started to stumble towards the defiant stranger. Bleda's corrupt laughter bubbling forth again as he pressed a hand against the second slave. Hutka sat in the silence of his yurt, staring at the ancient weapon cradled in his lap. The G had been handed down from the Khans of the Savage for centuries. It was a sign of their authority, a testament to their fitfulness to rule the Savage. He could feel the weight of years as he ran his hand along the moon-shaped blade and its ivory heft. He could almost hear the echoes of his fathers and their fathers back to the beginning of his people. The mighty weapon was more part of the Khan than his own skin, more a part of him than his own blood. The chieftain sighed as the thought came to him, as doubt and disappointment stabbed into him. He had driven his son hard, had done everything he could to make his son strong and proud, a true Tong warrior, a man fit to rule when Hutka's time at last came. But however hard he drove Dorgo, how much he tried to test the boy's limits, Hutka always felt that his people needed more. He wondered if perhaps he had driven Dorgo too hard, had set unfair expectations of him. Did he drive the boy so hard because he worried about the fitness to lead, or because he was afraid his love for his son would temper his judgment? Would place a man unfit to rule upon the throne of Savage? Did he test Togmal and the others who were not of his blood so severely? Hutka shook his head. It didn't matter. Dorgo had been proven unworthy with his cowardice and his lies. If he had fallen in battle with Locke, his father would have mourned him. For him to return, disgraced and vile, cowering in his falsehoods like some faithless Hun. It was more than Hutka could endure. When Ulagan and his scouts returned with the truth, there would be an end to the matter. Dorgo's tongue would be cut out for daring to tell such lies, and the boy would be cast from the tribe. The Khan was under no illusions what exile meant, a lingering, lonely death in the wilds. If Dorgo did not fall victim to one of the other tribes first, it was debatable which was worse, which was a worse way to die. Still, the boy's cowardice and lies had earned him no less fate, even if he was the Khan's son. What if he had told the truth, though? What if he had seen someone, some stranger from beyond the domain, kill Locke? Hutka stared hard at the blade of his G, looking past its keen edge into the dim days of legend, when it had been forged by Teocte. None of the other chieftains could have killed Locke. There was a balance in the domain, some capricious force that prevented the tribes from ever annihilating one another. Each of the 8 chieftains was a powerful warlord in his own right, but none was mightier than any other, and none could prevail against one of his rivals. Their strengths and weaknesses were too evenly matched, the balance too close, for any of the warlord to overcome another. Dorgo had said the man who killed Locke was not another chieftain. However, that gave Hutka pause. Never in the history of the domain had an intruder been the equal of a chieftain. Only once in the ancient sagas was such a being recorded. Hutka felt a chill course through him as he pondered the possibility. The flap of the Khan's tent was pushed aside, and Yorul's disfigured frame hobbled into sight. The shaman bowed his head, making obeisance before his lord.
The scouts have returned,
Yorul said.
They have captured one of the Muhak.
Hutka nodded, the same haunted look in the shaman's mismatched eyes as he made the report. The Khan forced his own doubts from his face. It was not wise to show weakness, even before the old shaman. Has he been taken to the place of questions? Yorul nodded, a grim smile spreading on his lip.
The Muhak will speak when you ask him to speak. He is only flesh and bone, after all.
Hutka rose from his throne, soothing his mustache. Then let us talk with him, he told the shaman. For the life of his son, Dorgo hoped the prisoner would bear out Dorgo's story. For the sake of his people, he prayed that everything Dorgo had told him was a lie.